I can only imagine how Trevor would have felt when he puts that ball to Palmer. You think, take a 2-0 lead. And then all of a sudden you look up and you've got Haaland there, you've got Silva there, Foden. You're thinking that would have really given us a bit of breathing space. It's happening every week at the moment. Personally, I would take him at the firing line.
If you look at previous goalkeepers we've had as far as Courtois and Cech, we're always searching for who's going to be the next one of that. And at the moment, we haven't signed anybody that comes close to those heights.
If there is a recall, I would seriously consider it. We're buying some exceptional young talent, but at the moment, that hasn't been realised.
Sometimes the best way to realise potential is to put experience next to it. Cole Palmer's done some great work off the right for Chelsea. Sometimes you're going, well, we just need to make it look different than what it's looking so far.
It's West Ham, it's Graham Potter, it's under the lights. This game on Monday night, it's big.
Welcome to another episode of Inside Chelsea, the show for Chelsea fans by Chelsea fans. I'm Olivia Bazaglo, and today I'm joined by former Chelsea defender Jason Cundy and, of course, former midfielder and assistant manager Jody Morris. Now, I love this show. I love doing this show. I'm just going to preface this by saying this, but obviously losing to City 3-1 in a game that I think a lot of Chelsea fans are feeling quite confident about going into it. I'm not going to lie, I'm going to put my hands up and say I wasn't one of those Chelsea fans feeling confident, Jace, but to go to the Etihad, to lose 3-1, I think in the manner in which we did is probably the most frustrating out of everything, would you say?
Yeah, I think that's the best part of it. The best way to put it, Liv, is the fact that we really didn't cause them too many troubles. Getting an early start, getting a leg up from an absolute gift. We were in a nice position. I felt City second half managed the game far better than we did. Haaland was excellent. They kept going long. Their long balls have got a target man to go and find. And we kept allowing them, because they pushed their fullbacks so high at times, there was so much grass in behind. I just felt all over the pitch, we were second and third best in the second half. Really disappointing. Look, it's not been great of late, and we understand that, but it feels like we're going backwards a little bit here. It feels like there's a lack of real confidence in how we're going about our work, what we're doing. Second half performances, there's a pattern emerging. It doesn't matter who we play, what the score is, second half performances are below par at the minute.
Jody, when you look at that, I say second half performance because that was where it was really bad. I don't think we laid a glove on City, but the way Chelsea set up man for man, playing a high line, could you understand why Enzo Maresca did that?
I would have understood it more if we put a little bit more pressure on them higher up the pitch, because if you look at how they played against PSG in the week, PSG were excellent pressing from the front, and a lot of that came from their front three. Where I think our line was probably in a position where it should be if we had a better pressure on the ball, and I don't think we was late getting in people's faces. I thought we was slightly disjointed with the press, which allowed Man City to play their way out of problems far too easily. And then when you do leave that room in behind, it's always going to be a bit of a problem when you've got Haaland that can go in there. And in fairness, we didn't defend that space as well as we have done previously. But I kind of agree with the pair of you. Going into the game, I felt not confident at all, even though City are where they are and how badly they've been playing this season. I felt we'd score, but I was always worried about how many we're going to let in. And unfortunately, that's the tale of our season so far.
Yeah, defence has been the issues, and the goalkeeper, which we'll of course get onto in just a second, Jody. But you mentioned not pressing City like PSG did, and I think we all watched that game and just thought that is the perfect way to play against City, because they looked so vulnerable on the transition and when they get pressed. And whose responsibility is that? Is that the strikers to lead from the front and then the wingers and then the midfielders follow? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there's a bit of a knock-on effect I think you can get when you're pressing high up the pitch. Sometimes it can be the trigger that goes from the person closest to the ball, but sometimes it can be driven from behind as well. Now, if you look at, I think one of the City's problems this year has been the lack of legs that they've had in midfield. When you look at Silva's played in there, Gundogan, who's not the same player that has played in there. I felt that that's another area in which PSG really dominated City. Now, we didn't do that. Now, whether that's the makeup of our midfield maybe at times, whether it was the fact that we was slow in pressing high up the pitch, which meant that we was always arriving too late. Like I said, I think it's a knock-on effect. But it's definitely a team problem. Let's put it that way. I don't think we should point fingers at anybody. When the press is wrong, it's wrong usually for a reason, unless somebody's not doing their job, which is happening further up the pitch. But like I said, I just felt that we were disjointed throughout the game.
I think on the back of, they come back from a disappointing result and performance against Paris. Even though they took the lead 2-0, PSG were the better side throughout that game.
Yeah.
Right? Second half, they were almost duty-bound because the scoreline to go after City even more than they did in the first half. I feel a little bit like we let them off the hook.
Yeah.
We've got a leg up, we've got ourselves in front. Now can you really take it to them? They played 2 debutants. Right? They've got 2 players making their debut. The 20-year-old made an absolute rick. Go after him, play high, squeeze them. Can we put the foot on the throat? I felt that we let them off the hook. There was no energy. Second half performance, a little bit going through the motions. We let City grow in confidence in the game in front of their own crowd. You get the second goal, obviously things would have been different. I still, looking back at it, still felt we'd have probably dropped points somehow. But I'm looking at us going, did we not see what happened midweek? Did we not see how PSG set up? They would have been hurt by that. You watch Pep now. I'm looking at Pep on the back of some results. He does look a little bit dumbfounded about what's going on around him. And I felt we made life easy for them. And look, against good players, they can do that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there with the period that we had in the first maybe 15, 20 minutes. That was our opportunity to extend the lead. And I think against teams that are better than us, which City is definitely better than us, if you don't capitalise on those performances when we're talking about the Parma, can he score or can he square it maybe a little bit better than he did? Those little small details can sometimes add up, and unfortunately, second half they was totally dominant.
I mean, that was the big chance there you've spoken about, Jody. When Cole Palmer's running through, obviously it was on his right foot. If that's the other side of the box, he shoots and he probably scores, knowing Cole Palmer. But, Jason, do you think that was the right decision to square it to Jackson? The pass was a little bit overhit, and I've watched this back. We have just actually watched it, but before we've come on air to sort of work out, I think Jackson can take it. I know that the pass is overhit from Palmer, but I think Jackson of the first half of the season could have taken that first time on his left foot, but he went to control it with his right, and the sort of the
I think there are so many variables about this, right? Scenarios. If it's the other side and Palmer's on his left, Palmer shoots. I don't think he passes.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing,
right?
isn't it?
And I think if Palmer is on that left-hand side, on his left foot, and passes it to Jackson, I think Jackson's a bit more comfortable taking the shot with his right.
Yeah.
It's on his left. I don't think the decision to make the pass is necessarily wrong. Yeah. I think the execution of the pass is just slightly off point. And Jackson looks like he's stretching. Could he pull the trigger? There's a gap. You got it on your weaker foot, and Jackson's weak foot ain't the greatest.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those little mini things, and this happens split second. Yeah. All of this has happened so quickly, and all of a sudden, it looks like a chance to go 2-0 up, and it's gone. All of a sudden, the ball's on the halfway line. Look, all of the above. If it's on his right and he has a shot and he misses, we're sitting there saying, why has he not squared it to Jackson? No. Yes, big chance missed that.
Big chance missed. And it's not the first time, Jody, that Chelsea have been 1-0 up this season. In fact, it's happened in nearly every single game I feel like I've watched. How worrying is our inability to go 2-0 up, to go 3-0 up, or to at least hold on to a 1-0 lead? Because we've just seen it far too many times this season that, you know, when you go 1-0 up, the momentum should be with you. That's when you should be at your strongest. And it feels like we're at our weakest when we go 1-0 up, which is mad to even say.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a little bit of a signal of lack of experience in the team. Maybe a bit of character. I think moments when you take the lead, there's in-game management that is obviously the manager's responsibility as well, but a lot of the time when, especially in first half of football, in-game management has to come from within sometimes on the pitch. And if you lack leaders, lack people that have that in-game nous or of knowing when to slow it down, when to stay in possession of the ball, maybe take the sting out of games at times or go for the throat, I think those small little decisions that can be made at the wrong time or not being made can be pivotal to affect the scoreline. And I do think, unfortunately for us, I think we are lacking that experience and that maybe character, as well as, like I said, there's the in-game management from a tactical aspect where we just unfortunately look too open, even when we're in possession of the ball, and even from a defensive aspect, other teams know that they don't have to work too hard to get chances against us. And then until we get the second or third, maybe at times, we're still a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah, that's been a feature of the season. It's been a conversation piece. You know, we
spoke about it every time.
Well, we spoke about a young John Terry coming in to this side. He had Zazie alongside him. Alongside him.
Yeah.
You know, Cole Palmer has, as good as he's been, who's the players he's got around him when things aren't going so well? Levi Colwell. You know, he's playing alongside Fofana. You know, he's playing alongside Chelsea. There's not that old head that where we can look around and say, how do we manage the next 10 minutes? How do we get through this? And they're learning on the job. In 5 years' time, we may look back and go, well, that was what an education that was. But, I mean, you were in that team when John Terry played with...
I mean, unfortunately, you can get different types of players where I think you can still be a top player, but doesn't really influence a lot of the players around him, where you can have the real elite players, I think, are still a top player for themselves individually, but also have the ability to influence players around them. Yeah. And I don't think we've got enough of them.
I knew we were going to miss Thiago Silva way more than everyone suggested, even though they said, and I don't know if he's like, you know, can do it for... I just knew that off the pitch and on it, in terms of having that experience, and we just don't have any of that now.
No, and then the knock-on effect of that is, are you then stopping the growth of a Colwell, of a Fofana?
Yeah,
we didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, so there's the balance. But I think throughout the squad, I think it's what Jody's saying, throughout the squad, we really do not have that leader. That, you know, REECE has come back from injury. REECE is, for as brilliant a fullback as he is, and when he's a fit REECE James, if he stays fit, he'll probably be involved in England next summer. But he's not a John Terry.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, there aren't many of those around anyway, to be honest. But yeah, throughout the squad, I think we do.
And also, from a defensive aspect, continuity is a huge thing. And if injuries or form has been dictating that back line is continuously changed, that doesn't help going forward either.
Yeah, it doesn't. And REECE James did say it in his post-match interview that, you know, we've been together a year, City have been together 7 years, so just cut us some slack. What I want to know from REECE James is what on earth Enzo Maresca is saying to them at half-time, because, Jace, the second half, I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but I just want to go into a bit more detail, because it baffles me how you can be so good in terms of creating chances, sometimes scoring 1 or 2 or 3, to then being so poor in the second half. Something is going wrong in those half-time team talks, and I don't know who's to blame there, but it's really bad, and it's becoming a real problem. It's
been a problem for a while, even going back to November. This is not a new problem. Back in November, going into December, I felt that we got away with a few things. Some of the goals we conceded late on didn't hurt us as much. We were still conceding goals. Yeah. Conceding goals is a problem for us. If you know, both teams to score is the bet for you ever on Chelsea this season, because every single game, nearly every game, that is what the outcome is. But we got away with it against Brentford, got away with it against Leicester, got away with it against Spurs, and then on Boxing Day we come against Fulham, don't get the second goal, we ended up dropping points. It felt almost inevitable at some stage that was going to happen to us. Then you fast forward against Bournemouth, same thing, we managed to get a 2-2 draw. Getting noses in front is not necessarily the problem. There's a pattern emerging, and there is a real fear. If there's a fear from us, imagine how the players must be feeling, because you're just kind of now waiting for the second half performance to dip.
I was actually hoping that the Wolves game was going to be a bit of a turning point for us, because it was probably the only game where we actually improved in the second half and looked a little bit more of a threat, and you thought, oh, here we go. Hopefully that's put the rest of those second half performances to bed, and then unfortunately you come up against Man City and do the exact same.
I mean, if the Premier League table, if the Premier League was done on the first 30 minutes, and if the games were just 30 minutes, Chelsea would be top and 5 points clear. That just tells you everything you need to know, Jody, doesn't it? That, you know, but I suppose it's good and bad, because you start games well. Obviously, Enzo Maresca is getting into them pre-match, and they start strong. Pretty much in every game, I see Chelsea start really well and create loads of chances. But how do you change the sort of the second half performances? What do you do? Because like Jason says, it's not just an issue in that City game. It's been an issue for a lot of this season. So, like, how do you go about changing that?
But there's even an element of the two separations of the first half, because you go half hour, but even the last 15 minutes, we're kind of letting teams back into it, and a lot of the time they're coming in with their towels up at half time, and we've kind of dropped off our level. So there's even like I said, there's two parts of that. But one, listen, I think the players have to bear a lot of responsibility of stuff like that goes on the pitch, especially when, like I said, the last 15 minutes that you're maybe coming away from the levels and you're not putting teams to bed. Individual mistakes in front of goal is not a manager's responsibility. That's players need to put their chances away. And then, obviously, if you're gifting opportunities at the other end, that needs to be looked at. But there is an element of, if the second half is progressively worse than the first, there needs to be something addressed. Like I said, I was hoping Wolves was a bit of a turnaround because, by all accounts, the manager wasn't happy at half-time there and he got the response that he wanted from the team, and hopefully that we can get more of that.
Jace, how much of this is to do with, so obviously Chelsea starting well, and maybe the opposing manager changing things because we've started well and it's perhaps not going as well for them, and then Enzo Maresca maybe not then adapting to that change? Do you think that's got a part to play in it as well?
There have been some criticism of in-game management from Maresca, not making decisions earlier. But all the time, on the back of what Jody said there about not taking chances, you allow teams to stay in games. Yeah. And in the Premier League, you know that one chance, one goal. And I don't care what level, we've seen Leicester go away to Spurs after going 1-0 down. Don't finish the game off. The game is still very much alive. And we are the most guilty of any side I can see where we don't finish teams off. Going back to the point you're making there, well, if you're a manager in the opposition dugout and it's 1-1 at half-time, your half-time team talk is that they will continue to give you a chance. You are not out of this game, even at 1-0 down. And I think that there's an element of, it's twofold for me. One, not taking chances and putting a bit of daylight between us and them, because we are a young team. We will concede goals. One goal is never enough to get us 3 points. It simply isn't. So therefore, 2 is our minimum requirement to get 3 points. Sometimes that's not even enough. So you're putting pressure all over the pitch. When you don't score, you don't take chances. I can only imagine how Trevor would have felt when he puts that ball to Palmer. You think, take a 2-0 lead. And then all of a sudden you look up and you've got Haaland there, you've got Silva there, you look at Foden, you're thinking that would have really given us a bit of breathing space. Yeah. And that's all over the pitch, it's just not happening.
But also it's a problem that we had all of last season, not putting away our chances. We missed them under Pochettino. Now, OK, we go for a run at the last 10 games of last season that was extremely good, second best in the league for the last 10 games. Because we started putting away our chances. We go for a period this year where a lot of the games I thought were kind of 50-50, but we was putting away our chances. Jackson was putting away his chances. The minute you haven't got a 9 that is scoring, then your levels are going to fall off. And unfortunately, that's what's happened to us.
Exactly.
I'm actually quite bored of talking about this next thing I'm going to mention, but it just feels like now Robert Sanchez is making a mistake every single week. And Jason, just first of all, what were your thoughts when he comes running out for a ball that he was just absolutely never going to get and just nowhere near?
So his starting position is a good starting position for where goalkeepers should be because we play in a high line. He's outside his box, OK? So any straight balls over the top, he should then be favourite to win that ball. The ball's at an angle, the ball has gone away. His distance to travel from where the ball ends up to where he for some reason, and only he can explain this, inexplicably decides to make a run out. He's not getting there before Trevor or Haaland. So therefore he has no impact on the outcome, what's going to happen there. But he continues to go. And then he inches forward again. And then by the time the light bulb moment, oh my God, my goal, I feel, and by the time all this had happened, Trev slips. He's made Haaland's mind up for him because of where his position is. It's actually, for someone like Haaland, it's not a difficult finish. No. It looks great because of where he is, but where Sanchez is, just hit it over Sanchez, make sure, and it's a goal. It's happening every week at the moment. Personally, I would take him at the firing line. I think the time has come because there's so much noise. Maresca's being asked
every time.
Pretty much every press conference, whether it be post or pre-match, he's been asked about this. And the errors are coming and the errors are costly. Conceded the goal against Wolves where he drops it. That made it 1-1, right? Eventually we managed to fight our way back and that's a good thing. But against City, you ain't going to get away with that. And I would, personally, right now, I think the time has come to take him at the firing line.
Well, that's what they done last season. I think he was going through similar spells and maybe not performing to the levels that is needed to be a Chelsea goalkeeper. And Pochettino took him out, put Petrovic in, who performed really well towards the end of the season. So it's not the first time we've had this conversation about Sanchez. I don't think it will be the last. But bottom line is, when you've got the manager that then comes out and says he's going to stick with him to the end of the season, I kind of get that as well, because he wants to be seen to be backing his players. But make no mistake about it, Robert Sanchez will know that he should be performing at a much higher level, and knows that that level is not good enough to be a Chelsea goalkeeper at this moment. Now, is he capable of getting to a better level? I'd say yes. Has he proven it at Chelsea so far? I'd say no.
No player has committed more errors leading to goals this season. He registered a 53.8% pass accuracy against City, lost possession 19 times. Obviously, that was going long mainly, but that was more than any other player involved in that game. Is it time for Jorgensen to get his chance now? Like, I don't really know how we're in this position where we haven't got a number one that I think is good enough to be a number one, and we're still umming and ahhing because they're both really not number ones in most fans' eyes. Jorgensen has been given a half chance. He's played in a couple of games in the Premier League when we've had a lot of games, and in the League Cup.
And also in the Conference League.
Yeah, but do you think it's now time for him to get his chance? Because maybe the best thing to do now, Enzo Maresca's probably, is he like umming and ahhing between what's best? Keep Robert Sanchez, let him just carry on, he's going to improve. Or like you say, Jody, taking him out the firing line so that he's then not in the spotlight.
The problem you've got with the goalkeeper is you drop goalkeepers. You don't rest them. You might be able to rest a centre-half or manage to somehow explain it away because there's in-game, we might have 8 games in 3 weeks, whatever that might be, or however you want to break it down. With a goalkeeper, you're dropped. Now, the reason he didn't play against Ipswich because he was on a booking, I believe, and he may well have missed the next game. So I think that was part of the thinking. When you take him out of that, I think it's then very difficult to go back to him because you've made the statement. Look, I don't know the situation, and I'd love to find out what the recall on Kepa's loan and Petrovic's loan is.
I can't get on board with that, Jace. Not Kepa, please.
No, but that's where we're at right now. We've taken Trev back. It's not a good look. We bought Trev back, and I thought Trev was desperately unlucky, by the way, to be dealt the hand he was at the end of last season, the beginning of this. But that's where we're at. So you've asked me about Jorgensen. If there's no recall, I would change him. If there is a recall, I would seriously consider it.
You mentioned Petrovic there, Jody. I mean, I'm quite intrigued to get your thoughts on Kepa and bringing that back. Obviously, Petrovic is on loan at Strasbourg, and they are our sister club. So we don't actually know 100% the details, but I think we would be very surprised if a clause to recall him back if we needed him to wouldn't be in there because they're our sister club. Their manager, Liam Rosenior, is saying he's improving every day and is world-class. I saw a compilation of his saves in their last game and he was brilliant. Were you surprised initially at the back end of last season that he was loaned out and we brought in, I feel like we brought in about 6 goalkeepers in the summer? Yeah,
and I think that's us as fans when we all look at maybe some of the positions that we go out and strengthen in or get reinforcements in, we almost look and go, well, is that where is that the pivotal place we need to reinforce? But I agree. I think Petrovic and Sanchez, I could see them having a fight off last year to see who was number one. And then they've clearly gone with Sanchez this year and Petrovic for his own development and us supporting our sister club in Strasbourg. That's the only thing that I would say is a bit of maybe a stumbling block. Of course, we are always going to gazump Strasbourg in whatever we're trying to do as a football club. But at the same time, I don't think they're flying on all cylinders in Strasbourg at the moment. So you wouldn't want to weaken them too much if you're just going to bring him back and then maybe chop and change again. So, listen, I think it's a real tough one for the goalkeepers. The only thing I would say is that the question marks will still remain. Are these players good enough to be number one at a Chelsea Football Club? If you look at previous goalkeepers we've had as far as Courtois and Cech, 2 of the best of their generation, we're always searching for who's going to be the next one of that. And at the moment, we haven't signed anybody that comes close to those heights. I mean, you could argue they are the 2 best of their generation, couldn't you? And we've been blessed with, both of them who have been brilliant. When you look at this squad, Jace, is that the number 1 priority in the summer?
Oh God, there's a few. I still think,
or at least one of the big priorities.
Think the spine of the team, right down the middle, keeper. Wouldn't say no to another centre-half. If Fofana's injury, we still lack a little bit of leadership in there, whether they're happy with that. We spent a lot of money in there. Haven't even mentioned Badiashile and Dizazi at the moment. Middle of the park, outside of Enzo and Caicedo, Lavia looks like his injury problems persist. Vega's gone out on loan to Juve from what I can gather. We lack numbers in there. And a striker, NKUNKU's not a number 9. We saw that at the weekend. He's a different type of front man to Jackson. And Jackson, it feels a bit unfair for him to be asked every single week to go out when his form is dipping. I feel he needs a little bit of support there. So I still think, despite the fact we've spent as much as we have, I think there are still holes in this squad.
I mean, just before we move on to the striker situation, because you touched on it, Jody and Jason, it's a big talking point. But obviously, when you look at, we're saying we need a whole new spine, effectively, or we definitely need improvements in certain positions.
Depth in there. Depth, yes.
Squad planning and squad building, the Chelsea fans are growing quite tired of the sporting directors, and it's becoming a real issue. I think they're okay with Joe Shields, but the others they're really struggling with. Do you see their frustrations in that sense?
The club have gone down deliberately, by the way, have gone down a route. So if you remember when the new ownership came in, their recruitment policy was Aubameyang, we bought in Sterling, and we bought in Koulibaly, right? So look at those players, look at the skill set those players have got. Vastly experienced, they're bringing something different to what... Then you fast forward 6 months, the recruitment policy completely changes. Yeah. We've then gone into a recruitment area where we're buying potential. When you're buying potential, it's that. You're still waiting for it to be realised. You're still waiting. Gusto's done okay, I think, when coming in. Palmer's obviously the jewel in the crown when all that comes. Still waiting for Jackson to be that number 9. He might take another 2 or 3 years. But that's the problem. We're going back to what Jode said here about the lack of experience. We're buying some exceptional young talent, but at the moment, that hasn't been realised. And that's, I still think, is a problem in the squad. So we will only know in 3-4 years' time whether this recruitment policy has been a huge success or actually been a bit of a nightmare. I can't make that call just yet. But I don't see them changing the recruitment policy anytime soon, do you?
No, the only thing that I would say is that I think where there's been mistakes made and spent a lot of money, if we use the centre-half position as an example, the fact that you're putting Trev back is people holding their hands up saying we made a mistake. Now, sometimes the best way to realise potential is to put experience next to it. Yeah. It's not necessarily to flood it with just potential. I think the best way of realising that potential is to be supported and enhanced with character and experience in not just on the football pitch, but day in, day out at the training ground as well. Obviously, mastered by the manager. But at the same time, like I said, there's fair enough questions being asked by the fans because they want to know why we're going to buy all these players and then we're having to call them back. That's fair enough to be asked on the face of it. But if there is a plan going on behind the scenes, that it might well be a 3-4 year plan. I mean, I know the manager came out and said we're not expected to be top 4 until next season. I'm not quite sure whether that fits into us as fans'
no, it doesn't.
Realisation of where we should be because, like I said, we could have gone top like 2 months ago.
Yeah,
and that was without even performing that well. That was with a much weaker Arsenal and an extremely weaker Man City this year. So, listen, I just feel that we do need to add a little bit of experience in a couple of positions.
Yeah, definitely. Right. We don't have any experience in the striker position, that's for sure. Jackson's still very inexperienced. And NKUNKU, probably say slightly more experienced, but perhaps not in that number 9 role that he's so used, that we're trying to almost make him play, but he's quite clearly not a number 9. We actually sat second in the table and 2 points behind Liverpool the last game that Nicolas Jackson scored in. That came on the December the 15th in that win against Brentford, which, we never beat Brentford and we all thought this is a real turning point. JC's gone back to the Nicolas Jackson of last season, hasn't he? I was so pleasantly surprised by his start this season. 1 chance, 1 goal, confident, clinical. Now he can't hit a barn door.
I think the chances have dried up as well. I think we're not looking at him missing a hatful of chances every single game. Yeah. I think it's unfair to point the finger in that direction because there's a number of things
it's
wrong,
not just
as we've explained, as to why we are where we are. And when you're looking for goals right now, you can't just rely on Palmer to dig us out of a hole every single time.
That's what it feels like we're doing.
Well, we have in the last 18 months. Cole Palmer's generally, no Palmer, no party. That's not necessarily, strictly speaking, true in all examples. But Jackson, yes, isn't finding the opportunities that he's had in the past. I mean, there were games, right, where Jackson missed 2 or 3 good chances. That ain't the case now. I'm not watching that game. I'm not watching Nicolas. If he gets 1 or sometimes half a chance in a game, that's so everything's dried up all over the pitch. The creating of chances, you know, I remember the goal we scored when Pedro Neto's gone down that left-hand side and Palmer's put it in.
Newcastle.
You know, right, Newcastle.
Oh, it was a brilliant goal.
You know, that Chelsea side at the moment, I don't see that team. So I'm feeling, well, I agree with you. I have a bit of sympathy with Jackson.
I do have sympathy with him, but it just feels like, Jody, all of his confidence is just completely gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're a striker like him, who is a bit of an all-round striker, he's not just a goal scorer, he's not like a Haaland who... I think he does have a lot of good attributes and he's caused problems for teams and been very good in creating chances as well.
Yeah.
But I do believe that when you are, if you want to be an elite striker, you can't go this long without scoring goals. And if you can have your little patches of maybe 3 or 4 games of maybe not scoring, but when it's going on for as long as it is, I mean, you've then got to be not just asking questions of Jackson. The whole team, I think, is affected by maybe other teams getting a little bit of a example on how to nullify Chelsea. People getting better results against us, and then all of a sudden those negative results for us then rack up a little bit because you're seeing examples of how to quash our attacking threat. And listen, at the moment, I just feel that I agree. We can't always rely on Cole Palmer, and it seems like that's all we're ever doing. But again, sometimes when you've got a number 9, if you look at people like Liverpool's attack, you feel that you've got maybe 2 or 3 options that can go on in the 9 role. You can put Diaz inside, you can put Salah inside if you wanted to.
They all contribute, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think there's just an element of, is Jackson the only one that we've got that can play in that role? That'll be the question that a lot of fans are asking. Why have we not got maybe another ready-made replacement or someone that can challenge Jackson for his place?
Yeah, I mean, Osimhen we were linked with him, weren't we? Throughout the last window, it never happened. He went to Galatasaray on loan. There were other strikers we were linked with. So clearly, it's an area that they feel we will at some stage need strengthening. Whether January's the right time to do it, they may feel it's a bit, don't want to get this one wrong.
Yeah.
January can be that market where you can get things wrong if you're rushed into it.
Yeah, we were talking about it last week, weren't we, with Kev? He was saying Dusan Vlahovic was the latest number 9. He is actually an out-and-out number 9. But whether or not that will happen, probably unlikely, I imagine, in January. It doesn't feel like, Jace, not that Maresca doesn't trust NKUNKU or Mark Gu to come on in replacement. I mean, he opted for Christopher NKUNKU in that City game when Jackson came off, but I just thought all threat was completely nullified when Jackson came off, just because they're 2 completely different sort of players. We've mentioned it a million times. NKUNKU isn't a number 9. He's not going to give you the same runs in behind that sometimes you need so desperately, especially when you're playing against a team like City. Just felt like it was all too easy when NKUNKU came on.
Yeah, I felt for NKUNKU at the weekend because the game had already... There was a pattern in the game. Yeah. And it's, come on and, what you're saying to him, come on and change the game. That didn't feel like it was even possible at that particular time. Like we said, we have deficiencies in the squad. Mark Guiu may well turn out to be a very good striker. He's 19, and then be cameo roles. Going back to the Crystal Palace game, he chose to bring Guiu on instead of NKUNKU. So he's still not quite sure as to what my best option is. I'm not sure there is a best option. I'm not sure the option off the bench is he's got to come on, he can change the game.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I like about Mark Gu, I'm not saying, he's a great replacement for Jackson. If we need a goal and Jackson looks tired or whatever, he's going to come off. But I do like that he's a number 9. And I think when you watch him play, he is going to be that person that does make those runs in behind and acts like a number 9. And I think sometimes that's what we need. But like Jason says, it doesn't feel like he trusts either of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've said it before on this show that we're actually surprised sometimes on how long we wait to make some of those changes, and especially the attacking ones, because when you have got the plethora of talent we've got in attacking areas, okay, they might not suit maybe what Enzo's looking for at times, but then you absolutely, can they be made a little bit earlier? For me, yes, but unfortunately, maybe not the type. And I agree with you that against City, you need more runs in behind.
Yeah, I mean, there has been talks of a Garnacho and NKUNKU swap deal. Jace, there is no way we are looking at that game specifically against City and going, another left winger that's inexperienced, that's inconsistent, is exactly what we need. Please.
Ticks the boxes.
No,
Liv.
ticks all the boxes that we
you go
don't
back to
need.
recruitment and how this has been set out in the last 3 transfer windows. This is how. I feel desperately sorry for NKUNKU because he starts in most, not all, most Premier League sides.
Yeah.
And we had this conversation before. He looks drained of confidence. I don't find a natural place for him in this side unless you drop Palmer, and that's simply not happening. So I feel that he is surplus to requirements. I think you look way that the Man United player, I think Amorim might be looking at that thinking, wouldn't mind that bit of trickery in around that area. We can drift in from Garnacho. I think he gets a lot of stick. I mean, I'm quite surprised how much the Chelsea fans on social media or ones that phone talkSPORT are dead against it. Depends what the price is.
Is it because of what I just said, though? He is another player that's inexperienced, that has had issues with the manager before. He's been left out of Man United squads for whatever reason. But also, he's inconsistent. His decision-making isn't great. It's almost like we don't need another player, which is very similar to the wingers we've already got.
I know, with the Mudryk
situation, agree with
the
you.
Mudryk situation may well force them because we don't know what that B sample looks like. He could well be missing for
That could be it, couldn't it?
a serious. Well, I wouldn't want to speculate about how long he's going to be out, but that I think is probably, even though we spent so much money, we've only got Neto and Noni on the right, and we've only got Sancho or Neto on the left. So we are, in actual fact, a little bit light out. Who else can play out there? We've got 2 positions and 3
Well,
players.
you can play Cole out on the right as well.
Palmer.
can't you?
Yeah, well, you could, but then...
For me, I'm with you, Liv. I'd be really surprised, especially if we're going to go and spend big money for him. Like that, again, that for me, I'd be like, I think we've got other areas that need more work.
100%.
And the figures being bandied about, I'd be extremely surprised. But I've been surprised quite a few times.
Yeah. I mean, for Christopher Nkunku, for him, he's probably looking at this going, actually, this could be a good move for me because he hasn't been playing very much. He's quite clearly not happy. But my only worry is, when I look at that Man United team, is where is he going to play? Because they've got...
That's not a problem, Liv.
If he goes there, it could be the same situation.
Well,
because they've got Bruno in at number 10, like that sort of role that he would play.
They're still struggling to come to terms to adapt.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
But would Nkunku be open to moving to United, do you think?
If I was him and the rumours were true being linked with Bayern, I know where I'd run.
I think he does want to go. I think he made it clear he does want to go to Bayern, and maybe that is the best option for him. But I don't want to improve Man United, and I think he would.
I think the time has come for him on a personal note for him to seriously think about what's happening over the next 18 months.
Yeah, he's too good a player to be left on the bench all the time. Yeah.
And playing in the Conference League, no disrespect to that competition. We've touched on the winger situation. Like you mentioned, Jace, actually, when you said the names of the wingers there isn't as much depth as maybe we'd have liked. When I look at that City game, for example, and we didn't really talk about it on last week's episode. We sort of ran out of time because we were just rambling on about other things. But I felt Saturday evening would have been the perfect game for Pedro Neto. The way that, if you look at the way PSG played and how good they were in transition and on the counter, I knew that was how Chelsea were going to play because that's pretty much how all teams play against City. I just thought Pedro Neto worked so well in space. We saw him do it time after time after time for Wolves, playing in that sort of system where it worked. Were you surprised he didn't opt for him in this game?
I think Pedro Neto's best position is on the right. He can do a job on the left, but personally, the best work I've seen him do in a Wolves shirt was off that right-hand side. He can still do the left. I've never seen Noni play on the left. I don't recall it. I mean, you don't maybe tell me any different. But so Noni's got his position nailed on. Sancho's nailed on the left. We mentioned about Mudryk is no longer an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can put Palmer out there. You can put NKUNKU out there. They don't quite fit the... So Pedro Neto, if he's got Noni as his number one right-hand side player, then you can't find a place for Neto. I'd mix it up on that right. I would. I would consider playing Neto out there. I think that's his best position. I would start him in all games at the moment.
The thing is, I think
Noni's got 2 goals.
Yeah, I just think he struggles with space. When we're playing against teams that are going to sit back and we have to try and break them down, that's where I think Noni is good because he's good on the ball, he's good in tight spaces. But
he's aggressive. He goes at the fullback. He doesn't bat an eyelid at going at the fullback. But I'm with you. When there's so much room in behind, we've seen Neto do it time and time, and he's done it for us. By
Newcastle goal.
Yeah,
He's done it for us. But again, that was on the left-hand side.
Also on the left.
You're like, I think we're doing Sancho done some of his best work ever at Dortmund on the right. Like, do you know what I mean? Let's not. I think that part of the thing that maybe has been a question mark is mixing up a little bit more up the top. I don't think we have to always have a wide player that comes inside all the time. Like, do you know what I mean? I think we can mix it up a little bit more.
I think that's fair. We are quite predictable.
Yeah.
Aren't we up top?
You know exactly what Sancho is going to do every time he gets the ball. You know exactly. I think Noni is good because Noni's left. Is Noni left-footed?
Yeah, left-footed.
But
yeah.
I see him. I have a really weird thing where I can never remember what foot a player is. But I see Noni go down the line a lot. You know, one touch. Did it against Robertson a lot. One touch and down the line and then crossed it in on his right foot. But is it clear, Jody, that Enzo Maresca prefers Noni?
I wouldn't say it's clear. I wouldn't say it's clear.
I think dropped him a few times.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. I think variation in wide areas is what the top teams have anyway. I think that you can always change it about. I mean, if you look at the City teams over the last few years, I think they've always had variation in wide areas, whether it be, like you said, sometimes you'd find Silva out there, which I don't mind Cole Palmer sometimes. Cole Palmer's done some great work off the right for Chelsea. Is it his best position? Probably not. But sometimes you're going, well, we just need to make it look different than what it's looking so far. And I think we've got good enough players in Sancho, Palmer, Neto, Noni to be able to do that and give opposition to. And I still think NKUNKU, I still think he's one that can play off the left.
Oh, I'm not sure.
I think if you've got Cucurella that going on the outside rather than waiting, then I think it just gives you a different option, and you need to make opposition think a little bit more.
We are too predictable, I think. But when you look at, I mean, like you say, I haven't got much choice. But who would you? I know you're saying we need variation, but if we were going into a Champions League final tomorrow and you had to pick 3 players to sit behind Nicolas Jackson, who are those 3 players? That
based on what the evidence that's been presented so for the last 8 months, Palmer's got to play in his most productive role as a 10.
Middle, yeah.
But Jody's right. I remember we played Fulham away last season. Palmer played off the right, and Palmer he ghosted into that number 10 area. So he wasn't standing there. He ended up in there and totally dominated the game. That was off the right. So he can do it. Champions League final, well.
Yeah, sorry, I was being slightly optimistic there, but I was just saying, what is our best?
I'm a Neto fan. I'm a big Neto fan. Like I said, you've only got the choice of 3. You've got 3 players in 2 positions at the moment, whoever you want to play. We got West Ham on Monday, right? If you're Potter going into this game, you pretty much know, you feel how Chelsea are going to set up, aren't you? Those front 4. He might change Neto. He might put Neto in for Sancho. He might.
I think sometimes even changing what fullback is the most attacking is good going forward as well. We saw REECE sit back loads against City, playing more in the free, and it was Cucurella that was going slightly higher. I think we're taking away some of Reece's best attributes if we're not getting him further up the pitch. That can be another way in which you're making the opposition think from a defensive aspect. And we've got probably one of the best attacking right-backs the country's had. And if he's just staying back all the time, I know he can pick passes and play in control when we look a little bit safer, but you've got to offer attacking options as well from fullback areas.
He's already come out and said, hasn't he? I don't use my fullbacks in that way, which means, for Reece's fitness, it's probably better on one hand that he's not bombing up and down that right-hand side, but it's another option at the moment. It does feel like we need that. But
that's what I'm saying, is if you change it around, you've got Cucurella that gets the second goal against Wolves from arriving late.
Yeah.
Not saying that REECE has to be doing that all the time, but sometimes you go, OK, Cucurella's played left of a 3 before. He can stay sometimes. And you go, go on in, REECE. If we was getting an inverted wide man going inside, you go, go on in, REECE. Offer something from the outside. Yeah.
I get the sense that everyone's still very much treating REECE with...
a little bit of...
Hasn't played 90 minutes yet. Yeah. Those injuries, we want to try and... It feels like they're nursing him through.
Yeah.
Nursing him through. Has to start, because he is our best player in every game, best defensive player without question. But I still get the feeling they're just...
Yeah, and that's understandable, isn't it? So Enzo Maresca said that about his fullbacks. He also said that Chelsea are better now because of what we've learned over this period of a pretty poor run of form. I understand what he's saying, Jody, but when I look at the 2 teams, the team now and the team 2 months ago, I just think we were better on every aspect 2 months ago. every aspect of our game, I feel, was better. I do understand that we've come through a tough period and the things they will have learned from those games are vital for this young team, but I don't know what's happened in these last few months, but I think we were much better 2 months ago.
I think that we were causing other teams a lot more problems 2 months ago. I agree with that. Although, looking back at that little period that we played, I still didn't think that we was performing that great, to be honest. I felt that we deserved to score a lot more goals than maybe we have done more recently. But for me personally, it's been a real disappointing spell, And you kind of get the manager, you want to come out the right side of a blip, if you like. But in fairness, it was kind of one of the things I was saying at the beginning of the season again. We ain't going to realise what the manager's like and what this team is like until we go through a bad spell.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we're in one. Unfortunately, we're in one, but how you come out of that is all important and how quickly you can come out of that. And I'm sure that he'll be hoping and wishing that it's going to be against West Ham.
How big now, Jace, is this game on Monday night? I think it's a must-win. I genuinely think it's a must
in
win.
big block caps, by the way. Anything other than a victory. There are so many little strands to this. They've changed their manager.
They look better.
I can picture it now, Graham Potter back at the bridge. I can just picture it.
They played Villa at the weekend. They were good.
Could have won it in the last minute.
Second half, very good.
So this is going to be a tricky game. It's West Ham. It's Graham Potter. It's under the lights. You know, the atmosphere will be crackling because those games are always brilliant games at Stamford Bridge, especially under the lights. But it can go wrong if we don't take advantage of those chances. If West Ham do get the noses in front, because they got Brighton after that twice actually.
Twice in a week.
Right, and all of a sudden you look at Brighton away, you're thinking, wow, that's always a tricky game, whether you're in good form or not. This game on Monday night. Big because the Chelsea, there's a little bit of unrest. You know, the performances and results have dipped, and we're now out that top four. We were never in a title race. We're still in the top four race. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
But you know, there's clubs above us now, and Newcastle probably finish above us. Forest had a dip. Villa, who knows with them?
Yeah.
City, you know, top four. I think that's a toughie.
It is. How do you see it going then, Jody?
Well, I just think it's going to be an intense atmosphere against West Ham.
Has to be. We have to make it like that, though, don't we?
Our fans need to turn up, by the way, because they'll be loud.
Yeah.
West Ham always are coming to us, but I do believe it's going to be a slightly intense affair.
Can't wait.
Any score predictions you got for us?
Any win.
I do fancy us to beat.
Yeah.
I fancy us to win.
Yeah.
Might be, like Jay said, the older betting one, both teams to score.
Yeah. I think both teams to score would be a safe bet. God, any win, please. Right, that is it for another episode of Inside Chelsea. We'll be back next Tuesday, of course, after that West Ham game. As always, if you want to get involved, post your comments below and we will do our very best to answer them. Thank you very much
Thanks,
to
Liv.
you
Thanks,
watching,
Jones.
to Jason and to Jody, of course, and we will see you next time. Up the Chels.
Up the Chels.